To the Sales Hunter podcast. My name's Mark Hunter, and today we have Phil M. Jones. He's the master of influence and persuasion, author of 7 best-selling books, best-selling business books, 1 children's picture book, producer of the most listened to nonfiction audio book of all times. His number 1 book is, Hey, Exactly What to Say. Phil Jones thinks and acts differently. His precise insights around communication added to a proven personal pedigree of peak performance and a richness of real-world experience means that Phil is the kind of thought leader whose counsel is sought after by other thought leaders around the world. He's spoken in 50 countries, and among his numerous awards, he is a member of the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. The show begins right now.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
Have you ever wondered, what is it exactly you should say? Well, we have the master right here, Phil M. Jones. Phil, welcome to the show. Thank you.
Hey, Mark. Thank you for having me here. It's a delight to be able to chat today.
It is delight. And of course, you've been in 50 countries. And of course, we should just say right up front that we met in one of those 50 countries, and it wasn't
the US. We met in 2 of those 50 countries. In fact, we met in one, and then we've worked together in another one, as well as in the US.
You're right. That first one was Colombia. That was still kind of an interesting trip that we made, but
wasn't it just? What was it? I think we did 3 different cities in Bogota and Medellin, and you and I were crossing like ships in the night because you would open and I would close, or vice versa, right?
Yeah, it was, but it was a great time. So anyway, hey, you have written the book Exactly What to Say, and I'll tell you what, it is absolutely fantastic for you to come on the show. Here's the problem. Salespeople don't know what to say. What's the big problem they get wrong?
And what's the big problem? I think it's the show up and throw up is probably one of the bigger challenges that we see quite often. Is people are trying to either get locked down on the script, or they're so focused on their presentation, or they say the wrong thing. Things like just checking in, circling back, touching base, and other inappropriate comments. So what happens is it just reinforces the stereotype of what people think a great salesperson is, and it's not a great salesperson. So the big issue is that people just find themselves either over communicating or saying cliched lines that put the barrier up and create friction between the prospect or the client.
I love how you say just checking in. You're right. I mean, I didn't know. I'm not a hotel. I don't know about you, but when people say I'm just checking in, I'm not the front desk clerk.
Well, I've learned that if you start any meaningful statement with the words "I'm just," it's probably the wrong thing to say.
Yeah, because it makes it feel like this is just happening for no reason at all. There's no intention. So how should people start off a call? What is the right thing? What is exactly what to say?
Well, I'm going to invite you. Give me some context in the first instance. What does a typical call look like? Because I think without context, content is always irrelevant. And give me some context, and we'll look at saying how you could make an approach towards that kind of call that would be more precise and purposeful.
See, I love what you're doing here because you are practicing exactly what to say. It comes right out of your book. I think you've written the book. Yes, I love it. So we'll just say it's a call that you're calling the cybersecurity manager for a company because you sell cybersecurity software. You know nothing about them. How would you start off a call like that?
Well, firstly, I'd try to not start a phone call knowing nothing about somebody. I'd do some work before the work. I'd create an angle. I'd look to be able to try and find a way of making this call on purpose at the front end. If the recipient of this call feels like you're just another name on the list, you're going to be treated like the person that's calling names on the list. So I would find an angle, and I would look to be able to do something that hits the show me that you know me button. I'd look to do something very promptly when I'm opening that call that has a person feeling like I'm contacting them. And then I'd look to get to permission as quickly as possible. The framework I then use for conversation in approaching this conversation would be what I call OFQ. O stands for polite opening, so opening. F stands for fact. Q stands for question. So we need a polite opening, a mutually agreeable fact, and then an easy to answer question. Polite opening could be something like, hey, it's Phil calling from insert company. Mutually agreeable fact might be that we don't yet know each other. And then I'm going to insert maybe another mutually agreeable fact, which is probably some form of sincere compliment. I've been watching the way that you've shaped your organization from cybersecurity and read a number of your articles and think what you're doing is really impressive. I'm only going to use that if it's true. So I'm going to have to have done the work to be able to create that as true. And then I would then put an easy to answer question in there is, are you still responsible for ensuring the cybersecurity efficacy of your organization for the foreseeable future?
Yeah.
So they can say, yes, that's me.
Yeah. You're a strong proponent of putting in that easy to answer question up front. What makes that so valuable?
Well, if I can get them to answer a question following some mutually agreeable facts, I get permission. What we've now got is an accepted place of truth. We've got a start line for a conversation that both of us have agreed is the same start line. From there, we can go broad and wide. We can question, we can qualify, we can learn to understand what's going on. But we're doing it in time with the music. Failure to be able to get permission to be in the call means that the whole of the rest of the phone call is you're on the back foot. The other person's thinking, what do you want? What do you want? Get to the point. So you're like, hey, how are you? And what are you up to? And I'm here from so-and-so. And you're just throwing words at them and they don't know why you're there. Opening fact question gets you there. The equivalent of this, if we go back to 1986, is now a good time to talk, which is a terrible way to start a phone call in 2023. But that was still a process of gaining permission, right? It was saying that I would like to have more than a 30-second conversation right now. Opening fact question gets you to the same point. And I think in any outbound conversations that you're having, whether they are cold or warmer or follow-up calls or nurturing your database calls, still start before you pick up the phone and decide your OFQ. What is my opening? What are our mutually agreeable facts? What is an easy to answer question? And I'll give you an example in a more abstract world that I'm here working with right now in the real estate business. Real estate business are calling leads that have inquired on properties. I would say, the opening is, hi, it's Phil calling from. I can see that you were on our website recently looking at blank, blank, and blank. There's mutually agreeable fact. They're like, you was, we've got some permission. And that you requested more information on 123 Main Street. Is that the only property you're interested in? See how what it now does is it creates a quick answer and it gives us permission to be able to go on a discovery or an exploration onwards from there to find out how helpful we might be able to be to that prospect. See if we can find a problem worth solving, as opposed to just being an administrator or just trying to push for an appointment. And I think this is where many sales pros get it wrong, is they try and close on an appointment, but the other person doesn't know the value you could bring to the appointment. So they have no desire to give you an appointment because they don't know what's in it for them.
Why should anybody give you an appointment if you haven't told me why this is of value? Right, exactly. Correct. And I love how you OFQ. That is really such a basic structure. And yet again, most salespeople don't do a good job with that. Now, let's back up the bus here a little bit, because right at the beginning, you said up front scripts versus just talking. What's your view on scripts?
I have asked this question of audiences and been asked this question probably more times than the average individual. So I have some well-formed thoughts on this. And my thoughts generally jump to all the reasons why people think scripts are bad. They think scripts are bad because they're canned and that you are unable to be agile in the moment, that you sound like you're reading, they're robotic, they don't provide the freedom for you to go in all the directions. And there are plenty of reasons why scripts are a bad idea. But I then ask those same people, have you ever seen a movie that moved you to tears? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I'm sorry to bring it to you. It was an actor reading a script, but they weren't reading a script. They were performing a script. They put the work in before the work to be able to embody that script as them. They became a character. They lived in role. They then say, yeah, but some of the best movie moments happened when the actor made something up. And I'm like, no, they didn't. The actor went off script. For an actor to go off script, what needed to exist was a script. Can't go off script with no script. They made a bold choice because they were aware of the moment that needed to be served. And they said, hang on, I think I've got an idea that I want to try that is going to work better than what we've pre-documented at this point in time. So they made a professional choice in the moment based on their experience and based on their understanding of the character they're asked to be able to come. What I've also learned to be true, though, with scripting is when you know your words, you can go in every single direction. You can show up for the moment. And every single sales professional, every person in business I've ever met has a body of documents, whether it's in a Dropbox, a Google Drive, a desktop folder of documents that are templated, that for the moments they find themselves in repeat, they copy, paste, edit, change, structure a few lines slightly differently, but they're not making it up from a blank page on repeat. I think we should be in the same space from a conversational framework piece if we want to be pros. And Mark, if you're anything like me as a speaker, and that you've done all sorts of different programs of different lengths and different times in different environments, you start to develop like a Lego set of components of sequences of words that at any given moment you can stitch it all together to be able to create something truly unique. Yet it's never truly unique. It's been pieced together with things that you've crafted out in the past. And sales roles are more repetitive than people give them credit for. So I think putting time, effort, and energy into mastering your own scripts so you can show up and serve those moments better is table stakes for any sales pro today.
Oh, audience, if you're listening to this, wherever you are, pay attention to what Phil has been talking about here. You know, it's the script, but it's really like the Broadway show. It's the actor. They know their script so well, they can inject that line. And I love that whole piece, that Lego visual. That's so key. But there's a big difference between performing, or I say performing, because that's what we do when we sell, and just winging it, which is what too many salespeople. How do we break that winging it habit?
I think it's always going to exist all the time, the stereotype of what a great salesperson exists. There's a belief that a great salesperson is this almost gregarious, alpha male, hyper confident, very aggressive approach towards winning business. And in the 800 plus industries that I've worked in, and then scratched beneath the surface, anytime I've ever found a sustainable, long-term high performer, they've never been that type of individual. They've been strategically more curious. They've played a longer game in the background. They're well respected by all core stakeholders. So they're well respected by customers. They're well respected by the marketing department. They're well respected by product. They're well respected by sales success because they don't get the churn rate and that they don't catalyze a lot of buyer's remorse. And they've been building this out for a sustained period of time. Quite often, they're not number one on the leaderboard, but they make more money than anybody else calmly in the background, because they might not be bringing in these heyday peaks and troughs of revenue numbers. They're bringing a steady book of business that is sustaining over a period of time. So how do you stop this? Is I think it starts with organizations looking at KPI dashboards of what it is that they're actually truly measuring within an organization, and are they building for long-term growth, or are they looking for short-term victory dances? I think also how you change it is you have to hire people that care about people and not profits. And by which it means that they don't not care about profits. It's that they are truly concerned about whether, maybe, if, kind of, could we help this person in this moment? Not, I've got the best widget and my widget's better than your widget, and here are 57,000 reasons why my widget is the best widget in the world, and we've been doing this for a long time, and we pride ourselves every Thursday afternoon on our great customer service. Like, it's not that anymore. In fact, it probably never has been that. It's taking a decision to say the model of excellence of what a sales professional is today is a empathetic, curious, kind-hearted, committed individual that is a problem solver to help explore the possibilities of whether there's a product market fit in any client's individual set of circumstances. Now, that's a different job description than what is written for most sales roles.
Boy, that's a completely different thing. And you said so much there in that whole description of what makes a good salesperson. But it really comes back to putting that customer first, which everybody says, oh, they put the customer first, but they don't actually do it. But you really frame, because again, we're talking about exactly what to say, but you said it's about listening. It is listening.
It is listening, but what are you listening to? It isn't just showing up and being a great listener. Like, the job isn't therapist. The job is sales professional. And that means well-targeted, strategically curious questions to collect evidence to support the argument of the recommendation that you'd like to make for them to be able to move forward with your product or service.
Okay.
So yes, it's listening, but you're not really just about listening. It's, can you collect very specific pieces of spoken evidence that you've listened to that support your argument to recommend why you're the right person for the job?
Okay. How do we up our skills when it comes to listening?
Well, outside of training with people like you and I think upping our skills as a sales pro starts with yourself. And it starts with humbling yourself in that you're probably not as good as you've been telling yourself you are. So I think it starts there. And if you care about the profession of sales, is to decide that you're never any good at it, that this is a never-ending practice. You're always working at getting better. The game is continually changing. And just like meditation or yoga is something you never master, I would argue that salespersonship and the art of sales is something you should always be looking to work on. And how are you refining your craft today? So I think that mindset piece is the starting place to be able to develop new skills. I think understanding also that the buyer side of decision making is continually changing. So you have to stay relevant, not on knowing your product and service, but knowing the people that are being invited to make decisions around your product or service. So how do you sharpen your skills? Well, you have to get closer, right? Proximity is power. How do you get closer to the people that you're looking to try and influence? How do you learn to understand what is challenging in their world? How do you put yourself in a position that you can show up with empathy? It's doing whatever you can do to be able to get close to those people. And only once you now have that new context can you say, well, hold on, how can I master my questioning techniques so that I can collect this? How do I increase my productivity so that I'm better at this? How do I amplify new closing techniques so that I can get better at this? How do I reframe my questions earlier so I stop getting that objection? All of that is a never-ending puzzle based on lots of moving pieces. And it means working with coaches. It means surrounding yourself with other smart people. It means plugging into books that teach you stuff you already knew because you've forgotten stuff that you used to do, that used to work, that you stopped making work. It's all of that stuff. And I'm excited, Mark, in the world of sales right now, that there are people that are demonstrating and showcasing what it really takes to operate in this at a professional level. And there are fewer people that are out there just winging it and being that sort of used car salesperson type vibe. And it's being found out when these folks are, because we live in a world today that requires you to be what you said you are. Whereas go back 30 years, you could have just said you were something and that might have worked out okay in a number of scenarios. Is today you have to be more than what you said. So actually the integrity of what is showing up in the world of professional sales right now is greater than it's ever been. And I think the future for our industry is better than it's ever been.
Oh, I love what you're saying there, because I'm an optimist on the sales profession, because I think we are getting better, because there is full transparency out there. You can't run and hide. But there was something that you said right at the beginning. You said we have to humble ourselves, and you have to realize that you're never ever quite there. And this is kind of interesting. You're truly a top performing salesperson. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And yet you're saying you have to be continuously learning, continuously reading, continuously improving. Again, this is something that I think too many salespeople fall off the wagon. They think they've arrived, and then they start slipping, and all they do is start winging it, and they wonder why their numbers aren't holding up. So we only got a couple minutes left here, but what would you say? Because in your book, Exactly What to Say, and I love what several people have said, you have to read the book, Exactly What to Say, every day for a week, and then read it every day for a month, and then read it every day for a quarter to make sure it sinks in. So what are some strategies that you would tell people right now in terms of, okay, here's what I need you to do. Here's what's going to benefit you the most.
4 things are going to help people elevate their communication skills to a point of having more influence in those moments that matter. 4 things and 4 things alone. And the first is to remember that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it. I say it in my speeches as a joke. It gets a laugh. It's not a joke. We all find ourselves entering into many conversations that were known conversations and coming away from them thinking shoulda, woulda, coulda, or trying to debrief a conversation when we should have pre-briefed it. So what that means is right now, decide what the conversations are that matter most in your world, and do the work ahead of the work to be ready for. And by which it might be that you know for certain that you need to be making some very proactive outreach to some existing clients to make sure that you don't have a retention issue. So what exactly are you going to say? What are you going to question? How are you going to get ready for that? So get prepped for conversations better. And any repeat conversations, if you don't have a script, record your next phone call, put it through rev.com. There's your script. That's what you're saying right now. Start refining what you're already saying right now to get it better. The second thing is to remember that curiosity is the fuel to great conversation. So I'd invite you to be strategically more curious as you're entering into every sales conversation. That doesn't mean starting an interrogation. That means even from a positioning of how you might ask your questions. You could just even practice curiosity from a conversational tonality point of view. There's a big difference to saying like, oh, so why are you working with ABC company to, hey, why did you folks decide to work with ABC company on that? It's the same question, but one's positioned with curiosity, the other's positioned with arrogance and certainty. One creates friction, the other gets you clarity. So curiosity is the fuel to great conversation. The third thing to remember and never forget is that people do things for their reasons and not yours. So quite simply, that means if you want to make stronger recommendations as a sales pro, that you should never, ever, ever invite somebody to do anything unless you can say these words first. And the words you should look to say first are the words because of the fact that you said, blank, blank, and blank, then for those reasons, what I'd recommend is blank, blank, and blank. That is a crazy simple framework to understand in theory. It's a challenging framework to deliver in practice because collecting the blanks is no joke, right? You have to be strategically curious to go collect the blanks that you want to put into the because of the fact that you said blank. For those reasons, what I recommend is blank, blank, and blank. And then finally, the fourth very tactical, practical thing that is worthy of remembering is that it's the person who's asking the questions that's in control of the conversation. So anytime you find yourself on the back foot, don't search for a better answer. Start working on crafting better questions so that you can control conversations more fluidly and actually reach moments of clarity without ever needing to guess.
That is an incredible amount of meat that you just dropped right there. I mean, I love it. I knew you would hit this thing out of the ballpark today because your main book, Exactly What to Say. How many copies have you sold now?
About 1.8 million.
Yeah, he says that so softly, 1.8 million. That is absolutely outstanding. You're doing a lot of coaching and you have a certification program out now. How do people get in touch with you? How do people follow you?
I mean, if people want to continue the conversation, the most active social platform I'm on is on Instagram. So at Phil M. Jones UK, continue the conversation there. If you just want to find out more at what we're doing, stop by either exactlywhattosay.com or philmjones.com. Have a navigate around. You'll see the range of services offerings that are provided. Plus on exactlywhattosay.com are dozens and dozens of great articles that blow up from my little book, the thinking behind it, and are crafted by some other great thought leaders and some of our fantastic certified guides.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've done a masterful job of helping the sales community get to a better level. So I want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. So follow you on Instagram. And What was that?
Instagram is at Phil M. Jones UK. And then, website, philmjones.com or exactlywhattosay.com, or just Google my name. You'll probably find me somewhere.
Terrific. With that, we want to say, hey, thank you for listening to this, another episode of the Sales Hunter podcast. My name is Mark Hunter. Of course, you know that. Today's guest has been Phil M. Jones. We've been talking about exactly what to say. Hey, would you do us a favor? Go out and leave a review on whatever app you've downloaded this podcast from, because it's how we attract new viewers by allowing you to share with others how you value from it. Each week, you get 2 episodes, one a short episode for me on a single topic and one a longer one like you've heard today, with a leading sales expert. My name is Mark Hunter. You've been listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. Thanks so much.